over the last weekend, all of Europe went to the polls, and the European Union held their European parliamentary elections. This was a really big deal because we were waiting to see whether or not Europe was going to make a hard right turn. Was the problems with energy, was the problems with Russia invasion, was the problems with China losing power on the international stage, was that going to spur people towards nationalist parties more than normal? Polling indicated that it was going to. And polling indicated that a lot of these countries, even in Eastern Europe and in Spain, that they were going to see spikes in far-right party vote shares. Well, what ended up happening was definitely a rise in the far-right's overall representation, but it didn't spike the way they thought it was going to.
Okay.
It wasn't as much of a right turn as people thought. Now, the numbers are a little confusing because it has the I want to run through the two main right-wing parties. They are the ECR and the ID. The ID, the Identity for Democracy, those guys are the most far-right party in Europe.
Okay.
That is where you get your big parties like your League from Italy or the National Rally Party in France. Those are the far-right parties leading the ID. The ECR is slightly, they're more of a reformist EU party, where rather ID is like a screw the EU party. It's a little different. So the ECR is led by the Law and Justice Party in Poland, the Brothers of Italy, and the Vox Party in Spain.
Right.
So that's kind of the dichotomy.
Okay.
Now, you notice I didn't say a name there. I didn't say the AFD.
No.
Where's the AFD? Well, the AFD was recently kicked out of the ID because the AFD was seen as too radical. Specifically, it came off the back of one of the AFD leaders. And if you're not aware, the AFD is the Alternative for Deutschland. It's the far-right party in Germany. The far-right faction of the European Parliament kicked them out because the AFD leader made suggestions that not all Nazi members of the Waffen-SS were criminals. And in response, ID kicked them out. Listen,
Probably a good move on their part.
Listen, good for you guys, ID. But you know, it's obviously you can't really have a leader of one of your co-parties saying that the SS had some good people in it.
No, I mean, that's a gift to the ID, right?
Oh, exactly.
Like being able to place yourself not on the furthest fascist part of the spectrum is huge. And I mean, I think that's been a big help for the ECR as well, to be even less like Eurosceptic, less radical than the ID.
Right. Everyone can point and be like, oh, we're not the AFD guys. We're not the AFD.
Exactly.
But this makes the numbers a little hard to read because you see a lot of independents in the European Parliament. Those independents are actually like half AFD.
Okay.
So those independents are also far right.
Yeah.
So if you combine the independents, the ECR, the ID, you might have the number up on your screen. What percentage of the European Parliament does that make up now?
Oh,
do you have that number?
I would have to do math to give you a quick
That's
percentage.
fine. Is it around 20%?
Yeah, around 20%.
Okay, so 20% is ID plus ECR plus the AFD independents. Now, while that sounds bad if you're against the far right, what is important to understand is that the center did hold. The European People's Party, the center-right party, the Social Democrats, the center-left party, and the Renaissance of Europe party.
Renew Europe?
Yeah, Renew Europe.
Yeah.
That's like the Macron-type lane of liberal. They are still the majority and will be the governing coalition in the European Parliament. So, yes, the far right made gains, but they did not take control of the European Parliament.
Yeah, I also want to say, I want to give a little bit of context on how the EU works and how important the European Parliament is, because the European Parliament it's basically the legislative body of the EU, but it's really not that powerful. They don't propose any laws or the budget. They don't implement it. That's the European Commission, which is made up of the 27 heads of state of the countries that make up the EU. Though that's the most powerful body in the EU for sure. The European Parliament gets to approve or reject what the European Commission does and the laws and the budgets that are passed or that are proposed.
Yeah.
But they're not actually setting the agenda. So there was a lot of hubbub made of this. I think this is going to be less important for the EU and how it functions. It might make it a little bit more difficult to govern, but not that much. I think the bigger news story here is, what are we learning about Germany, about France
especially,
and about Italy? So I guess I'll start with Italy because it probably needs the least amount of time. Italy has already been led by Giorgia Meloni, who is the leader of the Brothers of Italy party.
Who is in the ID.
Yes, yes, and I think it's important to.
Wait, Brothers of Italy or the League? No, it's the League, not the Brothers of Italy.
Oh, yes,
Yes.
they partner with the
They
brothers.
partner with the Brothers of Italy.
They're interesting because she is literally a neo-fascist. She started from a neo-fascist party. She's now the prime minister of Italy. She's mainly really hard on immigration and wants to be a free market country.
Yeah.
She's not Eurosceptic. And that's a really big difference between Meloni in Italy and the AfD in Germany, as
Huge
well as
difference.
Marine Le Pen,
National
Rally Party in France.
Yeah.
So National Rally won a lot. I think the most seats that were won in France.
Yes,
it was
lot.
It was more than double the amount of seats and the vote share that Emmanuel Macron, the president.
National Rally won 31.37% of the vote. Second place was Macron's party at 14 points.
Yeah. So they blew Macron's party out of the water. It's causing a reckoning for France because Macron dissolved parliament, called for a snap election. In about 2 weeks, they're going to have their election. And this is where I'm like, it's a good thing they didn't get as many seats as they wanted because the EU would really not be able to function.
Yeah, it would be ungovernable.
But where do you see what's happening next in France? Where does this go for them?
Well, France will be the topic of our next episode, but I will give a sneak peek.
Okay.
So I think that the parties in France will have to form some type of coalition to stop the National Rally.
Yeah.
The way that European parliamentary elections work is different from the way that French internal parliamentary elections work. And that makes a huge difference because the European Union operates on a proportional representation basis.
Mm-hmm.
That does not happen in France.
Oh.
They have localities that are then run with a runoff system. So the top two candidates then go to a runoff. That's a huge difference because it weeds out the extremes. And you have to be able to win the center in order to even get a seat, let alone a majority.
I see. That makes sense.